It's Buck the Trend. I'm your host, Dan Essian, back here with the man, the myth, the legend himself. Connor, welcome back to the pod. What's going on, bro?
Dude, it's great to be here, man. You know I have fun with this, and I like the rundown you made today. It's going to be, maybe some, not hard conversations, but real conversations as we like to have on Badlands, and it's always good to chop it up with you, Dan.
I appreciate it. So, yes, we got a good episode today, like you said. Want to do some hard truths, because I think people have been having some real conversations out here on Twitter,
and some not real ones. I see a lot of baloney.
Oh yeah,
well.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of
Whatever.
like fake narrative creation. There's a lot of bloating certain accomplishments and things like that.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I wanted to go through here and just really like talk about what's real, talk about where the Jets stack up in comparison to the rest of the league, which I feel like we do this every year. But this is just part of being a Jets fan. This is part of Badlands in general. This is just part of the experience. Is like bringing everyone back to like reality. I think often it's like it feels like it's a personal thing sometimes when it's like you're just not trusting them or you just don't believe in them. But it's just facts. Like let's just deal with the facts, the truths. And that'll ground us in reality a bit. So let's do a little bit of that. So we're gonna run through, I think, really the main topics that I feel like have been going around for the Jets at this point, and then we're gonna end with a little bit of draft talk. But starting with the hard truths with the Jets, we're gonna go through Zach Wilson, Joe Douglas, and then the coaching staff, because it's really what's like the most important pieces right now, the most important drivers of their success for the rest of the season at this point. So starting with Zach, obviously in general, before we even get to this, like I think the important thing for Zach is that he was not supposed to be a significant part of the season. Yes. However, I think that is no longer the part of the discussion right now. I think the main part of this discussion is that the fact that, one, there was an opportunity to make another decision here. And I think that's what I want to start with you right now, Connor, is, and we'll go a little bit in reverse. I kind of had another one I want to start with, but I do want to first start off with how did we end up back here? And then we're kind of getting to kind of where he stacks up. But first, how did we end up back here? Like, why do you think they decided to run things back with Zach?
I think they saw the Rodgers acquisition, a bonus of it, very low down the priority line, but a nice added bonus was the relationship he had with Zach Wilson, the idea that now they didn't really do this, but the idea was that Zach would be stowed away for 2 years, and then we'll see. Which I don't. Here's the weird thing with that, Dan. Like after 2 years, he would have been a free agent unless you picked up his fifth-year option. Which, okay, say you pick up the fifth-year option, you would really still have no idea what he is if you thought you were going to stow him away for 2 years. So I think that was always like kind of a weird sell, but I wasn't opposed to the idea of letting Zach get out of the spotlight, let Zach practice and work with a guy like Rodgers every day and see what happens.
Right.
I think my other point, though, to it was, does Zach need to be one play away from a 39-year-old getting hurt, impacting the season? And it's incredible it happens in the fourth play. Like, my whole thing with it was all year, or all offseason, was Rodgers, like most quarterbacks in the league, there's a really good chance he's going to get hurt this year.
Right.
Now, what degree, you don't know, but just call it a medium degree where he sprains an ankle and misses 3 games.
Right.
Like, those 3 games matter a lot. Every team goes through it. I mean, there's countless quarterbacks hurt, obviously, already this year. And the Jets have actually built a team, as we've seen, that they have a good enough defense, good enough special teams, and a special running back talent. And I thought, actually, to be fair to this offensive line, I thought their run blocking when they were healthy was really going the right direction. And then they just got decimated by injury. So, which means you could win with a backup quarterback. But nobody knew, including them. Like, no matter what they say, nobody really knew how Zach would be able to handle that important of a role. But they went with it anyway. And as expected, it's been a roller coaster. Honestly, it's been a roller coaster. There's been improvement in certain areas. There's been still young player mistakes, as we saw against the Giants, some of the sacks he took. There's been moments of playing up to competition, like the Kansas City game. It's just all over the place. And it's weird because the Jets are such an odd timeline team. They built this team, right, to succeed as long as they have a quarterback. So they go out and get Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And they're still kind of playing the game now since Zach's the starting quarterback after Rodgers gets hurt we have a really, really good team. Let's kind of see what happens under center. And it feels like anything could happen any given week, which is that's not really the way the team's built. Like, if the Jets were bad and rebuilding or experimenting or all these different things, it's kind of like what the Bears went through with Justin Fields this year. Like, the Bears this year were going to be bad, but you can learn a lot. You think you could learn a lot about Justin Fields, whether he's the guy of the future or not. And unfortunately, it looks like that's not going to be the case. They'll be bad enough to draft someone else, and Fields will get a start somewhere else. But the Jets weren't built like the Bears. The Jets are built like a team that can make a playoff run. So, exactly. And when you look at how long the upper management has been here, like they had to. Like, they didn't have any more time to screw around. Right. So, or else they would have found out like what the unemployment line could be like, and nobody wants that. So it's a little odd how we got here. Now the team is 4-3.
Yeah.
I think some of those wins have been despite Zach Wilson. Like, they found a way against Buffalo. That catch by Garrett Wilson was incredible and a bad throw.
Yes.
They almost beat Kansas City, and large part of that was because of Zach and the offense. But they didn't. They didn't beat him. They've hung around in games. I'll say that it's like this with Zach. He has mostly avoided the back-breaking mistake.
Right.
He did give 3 points at the start of the game to the Giants, but I mean, he's in large part avoided the backbreaker. Like, when he threw the interception to Milano week 1, it was like, this is what always happens.
Right.
And it feels like he's kind of avoided those moments. Even the pick against the Broncos, it was a call that was only going to Garrett Wilson. And as much as we love Garrett Wilson, I don't know in that moment I need to test Pat Surtain, right? Like,
right.
That's not the moment. So I don't really still blame Zach that much in that moment. So it's crazier. I know it's a long-winded answer, but they really played roulette with this one.
Oh, yes.
Like, you could have went out and given like Jacoby Brissett $5 million or whatever, like, and been like, yeah, our floor quarterback when Rodgers is hurt is fine, and Zach's in bubble wrap. You still could have kept Zach. He could have been the number. I mean, look at the way you still could have kept Zach, and he would have been the backup right now for an accomplished veteran.
Right.
But they opted not to do that, and the reality is, no matter what people say or tweet or anything, like, the reality is Zach is somewhere in the bottom 6 quarterbacks of the league right now. Right. I mean, and sure, now we've had a gauntlet of injuries where, like, okay, maybe he's now better than what Jaren Hall is going to be, but he wasn't better than what Kirk Cousins was, right? Like, he's kind of in that Kenny Pickett. Jordan Love's been really bad lately, but
yes,
I don't know if I'll go there. He's better than Desmond Ridder.
Right.
Gardner Minshew plays a totally different brand of football, but like, his range of outcomes while they're like this, at the end, him and Zach end up at the same like middle point in a weird way, kind of. Gardner just has higher variance, both good and bad. I mean, that's the truth. Zach is in the bottom 6-ish of quarterbacks in the league right now, and you're kind of like, well, can he be 25th? Because we actually might be okay.
Right.
But if he's 31, it's like, oh, we lost. Like, I mean, here's the reality. The Jets play down to all the bad teams they play, and they play up to all the good teams they play.
Yes.
So that's the hard, concrete facts right now. And It's going to be a hell of a ride the rest of the way.
Right. Makes for a lot of close games, makes for a lot of heart-pumping moments at the end of the game. But, 100%. That's the reality. I think the interesting part is, like, especially during the preseason, there were moments. Like, I think
for sure.
It's not 100% fair to say, like, Aaron Rodgers for the entire preseason and time leading up to the season, there's nothing ever to be concerned about. He was always 100% fine, and there's like, he had the calf, and then everyone's like, You know, and for like if we're sweating, you know the front office is like, his calf is good, right? We're good here. We don't have to worry about like honestly the first thing I thought with the calf was like, damn, like if it's like older athlete with calf issues, usually you're like, cool, as long as it doesn't end up being a KD situation, like give him the rest that he needs, and then they to their credit, they shut him down, and that was it, and they're like, you're not doing anything until you feel better.
Yeah.
And that was the right move, but I feel like at that point it's like, oh man, like, do you think about, like, do you rethink the plan? Is the plan good? The plan's fine. Is the plan fine? Yeah, the plan's fine. It seemed like that's kind of what happened. It was just like, should we? No, we're good. No, we're good. Just give him the rest and see what happens. But, yeah, like, here we are. But I think in terms of Zach, like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. I think the interesting part is where he stacks up. Like, with them running it back, it is what it is. I don't think. I think the timing of it is interesting because, it seemed like as they're transitioning to a new offense, he had a hard time with LaFleur. There's a lot of misconceptions and rumors floating around about like how long did it really take him to learn things? Like they said like, oh, he's always in the lab. He always has a playbook. Then LaFleur leaves and he's like, everyone's like, oh, was he really in the playbook? Like, did he really know the offense well enough? And then it's like, great, you have this new situation with the new offense. It's like, yeah, maybe you just move on. Maybe you just get somebody else. Like, maybe making him learn a new offense is, that's tough. But it's like, great, if he's learning a new offense and he's like the third option, you don't really care. If he's learning the new offense, he's the second option. It's like, you hope you'll never have to care, which is like completely different.
It's so different. Like, just to put it in perspective, because I'm not a believer anymore in, okay, the degree of the injury is bad luck, but the actual fact the quarterback got hurt is you can't say like, oh, the Jets are the injury, yes, but the fact that Rodgers missing time, like any amount of time, no. I mean, let's just go down the highest graded quarterbacks by PFF, and I don't care the grades. I'm just saying like this is an easy way to go through the list. Mm-hmm. Number 1 is Tua. Tua's hurt all the time. I know he hasn't been hurt this year. He's hurt all the time. Yep. Lamar Jackson, love Lamar. He misses time almost every single year.
Yeah.
Now this is where it's going to get interesting. Josh Allen, he didn't even practice today. Feels like he plays banged up. Kirk Cousins, torn Achilles.
Done.
Jared Goff, he's been healthy. Mahomes, I mean, he's healthy so far. Another guy that gets banged up. Yep. Trevor Lawrence, he had a knee injury and almost didn't play on Thursday Night Football. Yep. Then there's Dak. Matthew Stafford, sprained thumb right now. He's going to miss time. Jalen Hurts, clearly playing through a bad knee. Like, clearly. He's not even close to the player he was last year. Geno's been banged up, but he's played. Yep. Justin Herbert, another guy that's been banged up, but he's played. Ryan Tannehill, injured, out right now. Joe Burrow, played with a hurt calf the entire year. Yeah. Russell Wilson. Then Baker Mayfield, he's dealing with multiple injuries right now and has to answer the media every week if he's going to play or not play. Jimmy Garoppolo, he missed time this year. Brock Purdy, he missed time this year. Tyrod Taylor, he's out.
Yep.
I mean, and then here's the 3 of the next 4 missed time. Stroud's been healthy. Fields is hurt. Carr's been hurt. Yep. Watson's been hurt. You're almost going every other guy has missed games or should have missed games, but he has to play through it because that's being the franchise quarterback. Like, yep. I don't think people step back and realize the degree or the volume of injuries to this position in the league anymore. The athleticism of the defensive ends has these guys getting teed off on.
Yes.
So your number 2 quarterback is playing a pivotal moment of the season for you at some point, whether you want to hear that or not.
Absolutely. I mean, oh man, yeah. Just going through that list is insane.
Isn't that insane? I felt like I had 5 guys that have been completely healthy.
Right.
It's like Goff, Tua. That when you're saying Tua on the list, you kind of shiver up because you're like, I don't know if that's going to last. Like,
right. And if we just looking at the Super Bowl last season, like the 2 quarterbacks that made it are basically like walking in on crutches. Like, we barely got there. Like, Mahomes, I have no idea what he did to his ankle, but like, I'm sure he wasn't he was barely walking. And like you said, Jalen Hurts by the end of last season banged up, and now this season banged up again.
It feels like he's really hurt, but
yeah. You'll never know until he either gets really bad or the season ends, and then you realize like, oh yeah, he played through something crazy like Lane Johnson did last season. So,
right.
Man, like yeah, like these players do get hurt. You do have to account for that. You do have to plan for it. Well, I mean, I think that's where the difference is. It's like, it's either you plan for it or you're just like, I'm going to make it through. I'll take the gamble. And like, yeah, there are teams that take the gamble and then they just find out, and I mean, the Eagles for sure, they're kind of taking the gamble a little bit because they're just like, well, Jalen's tough and he plays through everything. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep running, the tush push and everything else we run because like, it is what it is.
Right. And they don't have a Gardner Minshew there anymore where they're like, you know what, Jalen, take the 2 weeks and rest. We think we'll go 1-1 in this 2-week stretch. Like,
exactly.
They don't have that luxury anymore.
Right. But yeah, I mean, you don't really have a quarterback that's built like Jalen Hurts. Although, I mean, we'll see what's happened with the Achilles recovery because that's been miraculous. So maybe he is. But yeah, so in terms of where Zach stacks up, man, you already went through a lot of these, but I wanted to compare him to a couple of quarterbacks that I feel like are around the tier that he's kind of operating in. I want to ask you. I know this isn't the randoms, but I kind of wanted to look a little this or that, but just honestly, like right now, based on what you've seen, based on what like the results in these games, right? Just straight up one versus the other. And this isn't like, I am not trying to like pick on the situation or anything like that, but this is just the reality of like where the performances have stacked up. So I like try to look up a couple stats of people that are kind of close to him. So, I mean, I'll start with Gardner Minshew because we talked about him already. Like, at this stage, Gardner Minshew or Zach Wilson, do you think would be able to be more effective, just succeeding with this team?
I'd still go with Gardner, but it's been a bit of a wild ride. When you see him out of Philly and into the Colts, the variance and the Jets coach Zach to not play with variance anymore because we know he can. We know he can. That one's probably the closest one out of all of these. I think Zach is honestly playing more responsibly than Gardner Minshew right now, and maybe that fits the DNA of this team a little bit better. But I feel like if I needed a touchdown, I would lean Gardner. Isn't that a weird way to answer? But that's kind of where I think that's the most split one.
Yeah, I think that matches up with a lot of what the statistics have been saying. Like, I think 2 weeks ago I was saying like the Colts were just better in the red zone. That was kind of the main difference, like as they were not operating without Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, they could run the hell out of the ball with both Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Like if you want a touchdown, that's probably what you get, but it is pretty close statistically as well. What about Mac Jones?
Wow, that's a good one. You know what? I might. Oh man, that's really tricky. I think I would take Mac. And part of me likes Zach's athleticism factor that Mac doesn't have. And whenever Zach utilizes it, it's the difference.
Yeah.
But in terms of just playing pitch and catch and getting, narrowing that variance gap.
Yeah.
I don't think Mac Jones is good by any stretch of the means, but I think he could put the ball on Garrett Wilson if you had him to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say Mac Jones.
I think that's always been the weird thing with Mac Jones is he has those moments of like really crisp precision that you're like,
exactly,
what? And then he just makes a boneheaded play and you're like, okay, yeah, sure,
100%.
It's super weird. But yeah, interesting with Mac. I think his touchdowns, the consistency has not been good, but the touchdown to interception ratio has been trending closer to Zach's as time has progressed. I think that rookie season really, kind of sent people for a loop a little bit.
And to be fair to Mac, he doesn't have a Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, exactly.
That skill group is the worst in the NFL.
It's quite bad.
And what it takes for me to defend Mac Jones? Like, I'm disgusted that you're having me do this right now.
I'm sorry. We'll move on.
Let's move on.
I only got two more. Josh Dobbs.
Pretty similar.
Yeah.
Dobbs is a better runner. Mm-hmm. And that's why Dobbs gets the edge.
Yep.
Dobbs is like a legitimate runner. You know what, though? I'll say this with Dobbs. He has 13 turnover-worthy plays, and Zach only has 7.
Right.
I think I actually will go Zach. It's weird because, once again, this kind of goes to the Gardner point. Like, Dobbs' running makes him a little bit more effective in that way.
Right.
But Dobbs, since the like he had a good start to the beginning of the season, but the last couple weeks have been really bad.